understand why young men in the 21st century feel alone, feel isolated, they feel like their lives are out of control, and they feel like they need help from an outside force. They feel like they need role models. I get it. I understand also why young women would feel similar feelings. We live in an era of atomization and hatred of one another. Everyone hates each other, and everyone's afraid of each other, right? At the end of the day, we're all abused children that never actually were able to emotionally grow up. That is why when, we're in our 20s, we're in our 30s, we are just reacting out the childhood trauma that we experienced by isolating, being alone, having our lives falling apart. So I understand when and how people can get to these positions. And I need you to understand when people are at their weakest points and they turn for help, where they turn is a space filled to the brim of snake oil salesmen. When people are at their weakest point and they feel like they need to find something that can help them, that is a very lucrative market for scam artists. And one of the most notorious scam artists in the entire self-help space is Jordan Peterson. So here's a clip of Jordan Peterson saying that gay people were better when they were being oppressed. Gay people had it better when they were second or third class citizens than they do now. This is Jordan Peterson, self-proclaimed self-help guru, emphasis on self-proclaimed, and also scam artist. And I mean, there's a certain level of just like the idea that anyone out there fell for this guy. I get it. When you're at your weakest, again, we're all just hurt little children. You're not thinking rationally. You're looking for something to help you. And I get it. And so I understand falling for a scam. We've all fallen for scams. I'm sure you've bought a soda. I'm sure you've gone to a restaurant. When you go to a restaurant, that's the biggest scam in the world. You can cook that shit at home for like 1/10 the price, right? So we've all fallen for scams and we've all regretted it at some point. But some people, they really need to move on. This guy is a scam artist. If you are listening to someone, if you let your political worldview be shaped by someone that says this insane shit, and I'm going to play the clip in a second here, you got fucking hoodwinked, bro. You got scammed. And it's okay. I get it. The sunken cost fallacy. I have a gambling addiction. All right? I get it. Now, I don't go play the slots. Instead, I play video games like Yu-Gi-Oh, right? I play video games that have random elements to them. That's my form of gambling addiction. Saves me a little money than going to the slot machines. But I'm very well aware of the sunken cost fallacy. You spent 4 years of your life reading this guy's books, whatever it is. I get it. But you need to understand, this guy was scamming you the whole time. He did not make this sudden transformation. There's a lot of people out there that claim that Jordan Peterson made a sudden and expected transformation into being a Nazi. And that's not the case. This guy launched himself into prominence attacking and denigrating transgender people and making up a law that didn't exist. Remember Bill C-16? This was a big thing. A lot of people's political awakenings, actually, were about Bill C-16. I know. Can you believe it? But Jordan Peterson skyrocketed to popularity, getting millions and millions and millions and millions of views online, talking about Bill C-16 in Canada and lying about it. He said that the bill would make you go to jail if you misgendered someone, with no exception. You misgender someone, you go to jail. And then Jordan Peterson, valiantly standing up for free speech, would misgender people on purpose, as a matter of principle. But that's not what Bill C-16 did. They made it up. They lied about it. And that's what caused Jordan Peterson to become internationally famous. Lying and denigrating transgender people. He's always been like this. He's always been like this. Now, I get it. At a certain point in your life, You may have been susceptible to the scam. I understand. We've all been there. We've all been scammed. Everybody in this world has been scammed at some point in time. But the real point in growth is recognizing when you've been scammed and learning from the mistake. So let's watch this clip of self-proclaimed scam artist. I guess he's not self-proclaimed self-help guru, scam artist, Jordan Peterson, talking about how gays had it better when they were dying of AIDS under Ronald Reagan's watch because Ronald Reagan wanted to commit a genocide of gay people. They actually had it better than now. Let's watch.
And what he observed as a consequence of his decades of work was that, first of all,
the clip starts, he's talking about some study, quote unquote study, some phrenology science.
The best thing to do with kids with body dysmorphia was to just leave them the hell alone till they were 18. And the reason for that was, well, first of all, the first reason was that about 80% of them ended up gay. And so part of the reason they were bodily dysmorphic when they were very young is because they were homosexual. And there was some tension between their emerging sexual proclivity and their biological reality, at least in contrast to what was normative.
So real quick, this study doesn't make any sense whatsoever because there is no such thing as a binary between gay and trans. For whatever reason, fascists, Nazis, and scam artists want to convince people that being gay and being trans are mutually exclusive, and that gay people are being forced to become trans because they're gay. That does not happen, right? You can be trans and gay. You can be gay and not trans. You can be trans and not gay. So the idea that you can either be gay or trans, it on its face doesn't make any fucking sense. So when he says 80% of people turned out gay as opposed to turning out trans, that's a false conclusion because it's built upon a false dichotomy. It doesn't make any sense, right? Any sort of cursory logical, looking glass would immediately make this whole thing fall apart. But he's going to use that as a springboard to say some fucked up shit.
80% of them would grow up to be gay. So, and that's not that surprising, really, is it? That hyper feminine little boys who are that way by temperament are going to grow up to be homosexual. And on the other side, the female front, that the hyper-masculine girls are going to grow up butchy and more likely to be attracted to girls. I don't think that's a real surprise to anybody. But the fact that it's 80% is quite the statistic.
Look at this, now on my show, I love to analyze body language. Most of human communication is nonverbal. Body language plays a huge part in how people get scammed. And Jordan Peterson is a professional scam artist. Have you ever seen that Matt Damon movie, like the fucking Talented Mr. Ripley or whatever, right? Go watch that movie if you haven't. It's great. I'm not even gonna lie. It's really fucking good. It's also an extremely gay movie. That's a whole separate story. But one thing that they show in that movie is that a part of scamming someone is body language, behaving in a certain way, walking differently, having a different gait, reading a book when you're not really reading, and so real quick, I just want to point this out. You can see Jordan Peterson look down at like a clipboard, but he's not actually writing anything. Now, I want you to really pay attention to what he's doing with his hands here and his face. He's looking down at the clipboard.
To anybody. But the fact that it's 80% is quite...
And he's not writing anything. He's pretending to write something down. But as you can see, all he's doing is fiddling with his pen. He's just doing this. This is not writing. So he's looking down and going like this because he knows people are going to say, oh, wow. And it's all subconscious. I need people to understand a lot of this is subconscious. Right? No one is watching this and going like, wow, look, he's going down and he's writing, and wow, he's so smart. It's subconscious. It gets in your head. You don't even understand what you're viewing, right? And so that's why I like to point out things like body language when it comes to these scam artists. So he is looking down, he's pretending to write down like he's some hyper intellectual, as if he's got like a 20-point fucking essay, and he's, but he's not actually writing anything. Like, just look at it again. He's not actually writing anything. And this is a big thing you see. You see this with Elon Musk, where he does like this stuff, and he's like, and he like does that thing where he's like pretending to think, and then he says the dumbest shit in the world, because people see that, and subconsciously they go, wow, look, he's smart. He's doing smart people things, right? So again, let's keep going.
I don't think that's a real surprise to anybody. But the fact that it's 80% is quite the statistic. And what that means is that 80% of the kids who are being transformed.
Now, transformed? What? Like, 80% of people being transformed? Okay, so one study where you drew a false conclusion means that 80% of transformers are being victimized?
Surgically are gay.
Now, and again, he's saying that as if there is a mutually exclusive property. Being gay or trans. It can't be both. It's a Venn diagram with two different circles that aren't touching. That's the world he's trying to profess that is real when it's not real. Okay? And again, you can be trans and be gay. You can be trans and be straight. You can be trans and have no sexuality. You can be trans and have every sexuality. You can be trans and have... These are not mutually exclusive. But he wants you to believe it because he's scamming you. That's it.
And so if there's a genocide, so to speak, and there isn't, but if there's a case of mass abuse of the gay community, the most egregious examples of that mass abuse is occurring at the hands of the trans activists, not the heterosexual monogamists. I think the gay community was a hell of a lot better off when they were oppressed by the heterosexual monogamists than when they are allied with the trans activists.
Now, so first of all, he uses the word oppressed. Why does he use the word oppressed? That's a mistake. I want you to know. Now, Jordan Peterson would not admit that that's a mistake, but he made a mistake. He did not mean to say the word oppressed. But he did on accident because he knows that it's true. What he meant to say was that gay people were better off when heterosexual monogamists were in charge, or were the norm, or were dominant. But he accidentally said oppressed because he knows that that's what he wants. He knows that that's his desire, and he knows that that's the history. He knows about the AIDS crisis and genocide of gay people in the 1980s under Ronald Reagan. He knows about that. He knows that gay people died en masse because of AIDS and because the government did nothing at all. They actually actively refused healthcare to gay people, right? He knows that. He's aware of that. And that's why he uses the word oppressed. And he is saying, and again, maybe it's not an accident that he uses the word oppressed, but it feels like it. Because it kind of goes against his entire other positions, right? His proclaimed positions. And this is the other thing about scam artists. Is scam artists, one of the biggest ways, look at that fucking guy in Congress, Santos or whatever, DeVolder, whatever his real name is. One problem with scam artists is eventually lies become hard to keep track of. And certain lies contradict other lies, and they intersect in ways that you are not ready to handle. And that is what I believe happened here. His lies intersected in a way with his true feelings, and he accidentally said the word oppressed. He literally said, gay people are better being oppressed than being allied with trans activists, whatever that even means. Like, what is a trans activist and what is being allied with them mean? I don't even know. And again, I get it. I understand. This guy is worshipped by a bunch of people who emotionally never made it past the age of 15. Because again, I understand having arrested development and looking for an outside influence and role model because your personal life is falling apart, or you feel like you're unloved, or I get it, right? And sometimes you stumble upon a scam artist, and when that happens, you become calcified in your emotional development. You become stuck in place. Like you're stuck, like you're in fucking mud or quicksand and you can't get out. Right? And so I get it. You're 21, you're 25, you're 30. You've been following Jordan Peterson for 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, and you feel like he's helped you in some way. I get it, but you've been scammed. And until you realize that, you cannot actually grow and change and heal and learn new things about the world. You are stuck. You have been arrested. And you are emotionally and mentally a child. And everyone is in some flavor, in some way or another. But you need to really understand that the self-help space, and I know this from personal experience, the self-help space is mostly occupied by predators and scam artists. That's just a fact. Why? Because people that are looking for help are by default in a position of weakness. So if you are a scam artist, there is a giant group and pool of people, potential marks, in the self-help community. And I get it. Again, sometimes, and it's possible Jordan Peterson helped you get out of a rut and now you're in a better spot. But that doesn't mean you have to become a neo-Nazi and follow in his footsteps. It means maybe he said something at a certain period in your life that helped resonate with you. Take the silver lining, take the W where it is, and move on. Maybe I'm being too nice to these people. I don't know. But Jordan Peterson has always been a Nazi. He's always been a fascist. And he's letting his mask slip now more than ever. But he's let the mask slip many times, especially before his rise to fame. Because once again, his rise to fame was predicated upon lying about trans people and lying about free speech. He just made the whole thing up. It's a giant scam. He just made it up. He pretended that now again, this was also a Canadian law. Now again, Jordan Peterson moved to the U.S. to scam people in the U.S. So his market was scamming Americans. He scammed Americans into believing a fake law in Canada was going to censor everybody. Because Americans, they don't even understand what's going on in their own country, let alone in another country. You think Americans are going to Google a fucking bill in another country they don't live in? Right? So again, the scam was born on lying about there being like some giant trans shadow council that's going to censor people. Never happened. Never did happen and never will happen, right? But people are too dumb to look into it, to just Google what the bill said. And that, again, I mean, it's just, it's sad. But, that's just the way that the cookie crumbles or whatever the fuck. There you go.